Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the UCLA Longevity Center webinar. We're really excited to present a new webinar today called Cooking for Longevity. This webinar is based on your responses to our dietary habits survey that about 155 people completed, telling us what they're interested in learning about for eating healthy meals, right? For the sake of longevity and brain health and heart health. So today we're going to cook along, if you like, with Chef Julia Rhoton while she demonstrates a healthy, quick, simple recipe for one skillet lemon garlic salmon with orzo pasta. So we're going to have a PDF in the chat with the recipe. If you double click it, just double click it, it'll open right up. And those of you, we can email it to you if you don't get a copy later as well. So Chef Rhoton is a chef instructor and culinary arts coordinator at the UCLA Teaching Kitchen. And this is a Teaching Kitchen collaborative. It's an interactive food education hub that teaches students culinary and nutrition skills. Chef Julia trained at Le Cordon Bleu California School of Culinary Arts, and she's worked in catering and baking in LA for the last over 20 years. She also has a degree in elementary education. So we're really excited to have her here, and she's going to demonstrate the recipe and tell you about that recipe while she's cooking. So I am going to, two things, I'm going to turn off my camera, but we are going to have time, maybe about 10 minutes into the recipe, that people can start to send in their questions in the Q&A portal. The Q&A portal, if you have any questions, type them in, and Julia will be answering your questions as she goes. So Chef Rhoton, welcome. It's great to have you here today, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I'm actually in the Teaching Kitchen on campus today. If you're ever around campus or interested in learning more about cooking and baking, we do have a wide variety of programs that are open to all of the UCLA community, so we're happy to see you in the kitchen. Today we are going to be cooking a one skillet salmon with orzo pasta, as was said, and this is a really great recipe for meal prep. It's a really great recipe for easy cleanup because it's nice in just one pan, and it's a great recipe for our overall health. Everyone talks about the Mediterranean diet as one of the more healthy diets to follow, and this recipe falls in line with those guidelines. So we are going to get started on our basic prep, and that includes seasoning our salmon, and then we're going to get into some knife skills work. So I've got all of my stuff behind me, kind of ready to go. The magic of TV, I am all set. But I want to point out that when you are cooking something at home, whether it's a very quick and easy soup or a extravagant dinner recipe, you want to set yourself up so that you can stay where you are working in the kitchen and just have a good time. I've got a little cup here that I use for all my trash. So as I'm chopping, slicing, and dicing, everything can go in one little happy place so that future Julia has a much easier time of cleaning up the table around me. I've got all of my tools and utensils that I might need handy. And I've gathered all of my produce and herbs and already washed everything. I recommend doing all of that in advance. Again, it reduces the stress of cooking, and it makes it a lot easier to clean if you get yourself organized and set up from the get-go. So I've got all of my stuff laid out, including here some salt and pepper. And we are going to start off by seasoning our salmon fillets with some basic salt and pepper. And I always recommend using coarse kosher salt when you are cooking. It's the best grain structure to cook into our food and season thoroughly and well, and it tastes the best. So coarse kosher salt for cooking. And I'm going to, this is This is salmon farmed out of Alaska. We love wild caught salmon, and you can get wild caught salmon from local fisheries here in LA at the farmers market. There's a company called Wild Caught, and you can get actual wild caught salmon off of out of the Pacific Ocean. The next best would be farmed out of Alaska. We love the Pacific water salmon, and a lot of the companies out of that region put money back into the industries for local and indigenous culture. And so that's something we love. Atlantic salmon, I'm so sorry, take that off your menu card. There's no such thing really as Atlantic salmon anymore. It's all been overfished. And so the only Atlantic salmon that you can get is farmed, and it's not that great. I'm just gonna say. So recommend the Pacific caught salmon, and the farmed Alaskan salmon is usually pretty great. Or wild caught from Alaska is sometimes more affordable. So lots of different options. And I have got salmon with the skin on. Even if you don't like to eat this salmon skin, it's nice to cook it with the skin on, because then you're getting a lot more of those healthy fats, the omegas that we want to get from our fish that salmon is so full of. So if you cook it with the skin on, you're getting more of those healthy oils into the rest of the food. And then you can always just take it off after it's cooked if you don't like to eat it, which is totally fine. So I'm going to sprinkle over some coarse kosher salt over my 4 salmon fillets, and I'm going to try to do this pretty evenly. When we say a pinch of salt, we mean your middle finger, forefinger, and thumb. That's your little pincher. Okay, so a small pinch of salt. You can always add more salt as you cook, which we will be doing. And so try to go to lighter to start out with. Sodium is something of concern. Our bodies need salt, but only so much. And if you eat processed food, it's likely you're getting maybe a little too much sodium. So being in control of your own salt and cooking at home can make huge health impacts. Little bits of salt. You can also use a salt substitute if that works better for your diet, and there are some really great ones out there. I think like Mrs. Dash is pretty wonderful in terms of its flavor, and it's mostly just potassium. So that could be a great alternative for some folks. In addition to the salt and pepper, we are going to be sprinkling over some paprika. And I'm just going to do, it's about 1/4 teaspoon. So that's divided between the 4 fillets. Don't do 1/4 teaspoon on each fillet. That would be, that'd be a lot of paprika. So just a little sprinkle over the top. And then these are, we call them fine herb. I don't speak French, I apologize. Fine herbs are like thyme, marjoram, lavender. They're the sort of delicate roasting herbs. You can use Italian herb seasoning. You can use the dried fine herb, any kind of herb medley that you really like, or you can just use a thyme or rosemary. That would be wonderful. As you use dried spices, though, it's hard to see in a camera, but I'm actually rubbing these together between my fingers before sprinkling it over the top. This helps to wake up the oils inside the dried herbs so that they become a little bit more pungent and flavorful. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Even if you're not going to eat the skin of the salmon, we want to season it all over so that the rest of the food is seasoned evenly as well. So small pinch of salt, small pinch of pepper, some herbs, and some paprika. You could do this with any kind of fish that you like, to be quite honest. If you like tilapia, it would work. If you like cod, it would work. Just try to make sure that the fillet of fish is no more than about 1 inch thick. If you start to get into like the very thick pieces like halibut, you're going to have to cook it a lot longer. But that's the only difference. You could use any of those seafoods. Okay, so our fish is gently seasoned on both sides. I am just going to set this to the side for now and let it kind of absorb some of that seasoning and flavor. And then we're going to get into the rest of the prep, which is chopping up all of our veggies and accoutrements. So I have here all of the produce that is going into this recipe, and this has all been washed and or handled in the way that it kind of needs to. I've got some celery, onion, carrot. That's our classic mirepoix. Mirepoix is, where am I going? Where's the camera? There's the camera. Mirepoix is the foundation of most Western cooking, especially French cooking. Hence the name mirepoix. But it is onion, carrot, and celery. And then we are adding in some fennel and some broccoli. The fennel is going to help enhance the flavor. It makes it a little bit more springy and what's the word? A little bit sweeter. Fennel has a little bit of sugar to it, kind of helps to balance out all of the different flavors that we have going in here. And broccoli we're adding because it is just so good for us. And we want to always increase our intake of green vegetables whenever we can. Broccoli, fun fact, is actually considered a dark leafy green. The florets themselves, the broccoli tops, are incredibly good for you and high in all those kinds of leafy green nutrients. So it doesn't always have to be kale. You can enjoy some broccoli instead. Okay, making sure you guys can see my cutting board here. I am going to be small dicing the celery and the carrot. So just as a really quick refresher, I'm sure a lot of you have been cooking for a long time, and maybe some of you just started, and so I'm gonna treat you all the same. This is a chef's knife. Here, let me turn my camera just a skosh. I think that'll help. This is a chef's knife. This is about an 8-inch chef's knife, and whatever fits best in your hand is the knife that you should use. Some people prefer the 6-inch or the 10-inch. It's sort of what works best. We want to hold the knife very close to the blade itself. You don't want to hold it way back here on the handle. That's not giving you a very confident or firm grip on the blade. Choke up on that handle. I pinch the outside of the knife with my forefinger and thumb, and that helps to give me extra strength, especially if I'm feeling like some fatigue or my knife hand doesn't feel as strong. That grip on the side will be really helpful for you to keep a good, safe hold of what you're doing. More importantly to me is what you do with your opposite hand. Oh, I'm going to take these off now that I'm done touching the fish. Your opposite hand we call the guide hand. It is called that because it helps guide where your knife goes. But some people call it the claw hand, and that is because we encourage you to keep the first knuckle tucked underneath. See how I can still hold the celery in place, but my fingertips are much safer. This compared to this is a huge change in terms of your safety. So remember, tuck that finger back, all those fingers back in that claw shape, and then you can have a nice safe grip of whatever you're cutting. I'm going to remove both ends of the celery just because they're a little bit rough, woody, and we are going to small dice this celery up. So the basic rule for dicing, it's a 3-step process. You cut a slice, you cut a stick, you cut a dice. So that looks a little different with different vegetables, but for celery, I'm going to cut this in half just to give myself something easier to work with. And then I'm going to cut these into, so this is what I would consider my slice. It's already in a slice. We'll just call it that. Then I'm going to cut this into sticks, and I'm going to carefully hold my knife, tuck my fingers back, and cut downwards. You notice I'm planting the tip of the knife in front of the food and then kind of rocking it down like a guillotine. Okay, I'm going to do that again with this piece. Small, skinny sticks. Okay, then you turn the sticks around, line them all up, and then you may have seen some chefs on TV who like to do the move where they bang their knife against the cutting boards. 2 things. You're going to dull your knife much faster if that's what you do all the time. And second, you're more likely to hurt yourself. It's not a guarantee, but you are more likely to cut yourself. So I recommend planting the tip of the knife as your pivot point, locking that down on the cutting board, and then bringing your wrist up and down, up and down, up and down. But you see I'm not lifting the knife up off the cutting board. It's just a rocking, chopping motion. So just like that, we've got 1 celery stalk, small dice. I'm going to set that to the side. always try to keep your cutting board as free and clear as possible. Okay, next is le carotte. Couple of fun things about the carrot. You do not need to peel the carrot. Carrots, I mean, we could get into a long debate over whether they even have a peel or not. It's just the outside of the carrot. And it gets a little oxidized and drier from being exposed to the air around it. So it's not as bright orange as the inside of the carrot, but it's still carrot. It's still usable, edible, delicious carrot. So instead of peeling and throwing away half your food, just wash them, scrub them under cold running water, and the carrot is good to go. So I'm going to remove, again, just like the celery, both ends, and that's just to remove the stem end and some of the frayed parts at the tip. And this is a little bit more challenging to dice. We're going to cut it in half. And then this is something that I know people struggle with a lot. When you're cutting a very dense produce. This is a fall winter crop, so it has a lot less water in it than some of our other things like the fennel and celery, which are usually spring crops. So they have a lot more water in them. So for a hard object, if I were to just hold this with my kitchen claw and try to cut it in half, the likelihood of it rolling off and hurting me is a little bit too high for me to want to risk. So instead of using the claw hold, we use a different hold called the bridge. My thumb and forefinger make a bridge that goes over the carrot. My knife becomes a little troll under the bridge and lock it in and then chop down through. Okay, it's just a great way to remember where your fingers are and to keep everything out of the way of the knife. So bridge, troll, chop. Okay, again, we are just small dicing this. And if you if you wanted to go back in the time machine to my culinary school, we would be throwing away half of this carrot in order to square it off and make perfect cube dices. Luckily, we don't need to do that when we're at home. No angry Frenchman is going to come by your house with a ruler and measure your carrots. So we just want to cut them into kind of long sticks. And so again, it's a little bit tough. So I plant the knife in and then chop through. Plant the knife in the head of the carrot, chop through. So I'm going to line these all up and I'm just going to small dice or chop the carrot. The more you practice that rocking technique with the knife, the more intuitive it becomes. Took me a few weeks in culinary school. We had to buy 2-pound bags of potatoes and practice chopping with those over and over and over again. And yes, there was an angry Frenchman who would come around with a ruler and measure all of our stuff. It's nice to not have that worry anymore. So we've got some small chopped carrot. We've got some small diced celery. We are going to do our onion next. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna grab a bowl really quick. I'm sorry, guys. Just so that I can put these onions and celery, carrots into another vessel. If you're working with a small cutting board like I am today, you want to make sure that you have as much space as possible to do your work. Don't let the food control you by taking up the space. Okay, we are just slicing this onion today because it goes really well in the dish to have thinly sliced onions, but I'm gonna talk about the best way to dice it as well, just because I know a lot of folks want to learn that. This root end is your best friend. Do not cut the root end off. You can cut the other end off where it once grew out of the ground. So you have a flat side to set it on. That's always going to be safer for you. But this root end is going to hold all those tricky layers together so that the onion doesn't just fall apart to pieces before you have a chance to cut it. So I'm going to plant my knife centered on that root, and I'm going to chop the onion in half, peel off the outer layer so that I can make sure it's nice, good, usable, edible onion. And again, just putting everything into my little trash cup here makes a big difference. Onions are also incredibly high in lots of different nutrition. As a chef, I came to UCLA about 6 years ago, and to me, onions were just like the workhorse of the kitchen. We put them in everything. They're a foundational aromatic, but I never really thought about their benefits outside of the culinary field. And then I learned like they have a lot of good stuff going for them, you know? There's vitamins, there's different nutrients, it helps your body in lots of different ways. So don't sleep on the onions. Okay. To slice, the root end is going to hold it all together. I'm going to face the root end away from my knife hand, and then I'm just going to slice into thin, 1/4 of an inch or less slices straight across, like a half moon. And we're going to get all the way back towards that root end, and that's all that's going to be left over, and you can just discard that. Nice and easy peasy. When you can cut an onion quickly, you're a lot less likely to tear up. But if you do have sensitivity to cutting onion, which is very normal, the best thing that you can do is set yourself up with some really strong ventilation. So put a fan or cut the onion right next to an open window, or even better, go outside. The better ventilation that you have, the less it will kind of get up into your sinuses and tear ducts. Or you can wear contacts like me. I don't feel anything. It's my superpower. So the onions, carrots, and celery are all going to be cooked together. So I'm just dumping them all into the same bowl. It's important to read your recipes, though. Sometimes things will say, you know, add the mushrooms later or whatever. So you don't always want to just mix everything together. Pay attention to the prep. Okay. This is a fennel. I'm not sure if everybody has ever seen this or worked with this before. My favorite trivia fact about fennel is that in the 1970s, fennel was such a new ingredient for people in the United States that it was featured in the Star Wars movies as alien food in the cantina scenes, in the restaurant and party scenes, because people in the US didn't know what it was and it looked like alien food. But it's a beautiful, wonderful vegetable. It's a bulb, and it's part of the anise family, similar to those kind of mild, sweet licorice vibes that you get from tarragon and stuff. We are going to remove the fronds. We don't use these for this, but keep them if you make soup or vegetable broth. This is great to throw in for the added flavor, and then you can take them back out. So a great little bit of food scraps that you can use for other stuff. Okay, so once you have your fennel bulb, you're going to cut it in half. And you're going to see on the inside there's like a core. That little core piece we're going to remove. And the easiest way to do that is to just cut a V shape, an upside down V, around the core piece. Okay, just discard that core. And then we are going to thin slice the fennel. So same as the onion, I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to slice thin straight across all the way back to the end. This is a really wonderful plant here in LA, especially because we are sort of the Western Mediterranean. Wild fennel grows all along the Ballona Creek bike path. So if you ride a bike or jog or walk through LA on the west side, a certain time of year, it's almost overwhelming, the smell of the wild fennel growing near the creek. It's really beautiful. So that is our sliced fennel bulb. So that is also going to be cooked with the onion, celery, and carrot. So again, I'm just adding that to the same bowl. Voila. Okay. Any other prep, even though the garlic goes in later and the broccoli goes in later, we could, I guess, start cooking these veggies first. But in honor of my dad, rest in peace, who used to cut the onion and then start cooking the onion and then come back to try to cut things, by then the onions were burnt. It's hard to keep up with that kind of stuff. So get all your chopping done first. So I have one small crown of broccoli here. And we're going to use most of it, including some of the stem. The stem on broccoli is edible and delicious and full of flavor. But we're going to remove the tops of the trees. All of our little florets are going to come off first. And I just like to think, you know, if you have a question, how big should I cut this thing? Well, how do you intend to eat the dish? Is it something that you spoon? Is it something you're going to use a knife and fork? And so that can help you dictate, do you want it to already be bite-sized, or can you leave a little bit more girth, right? I'm going to cut these florets to basically bite-size. And I'm just chopping them off just from the stem at the base of the floret. Just cut. But then once you've cut them off, I could go through this and chop this all up, but then I'm going to end up wasting a lot of broccoli. It's called broccoli dust. Let me just use one floret as an example. If I chop this with a knife, and then I tried up these pieces, there's a lot of this broccoli kind of stuff left over. And if you do that to the whole broccoli, you're going to end up throwing away a lot of your broccoli dust. So instead of chopping them, once you've removed them from the stem, we actually recommend just tearing the broccoli with your hands. That's the best way to make large florets smaller. And it also is a fun way to feel like you're a giant and these are trees and you are ripping them with your hands. No. It was one of the ways that I used to help my grandma when I was a little girl, tearing the broccoli. Okay, and we are going to use mostly the florets, but like I said, a lot of the sugar, the natural, like good sugars in the broccoli are in the stem. So I'm going to cut just a little bit so that I can get some of that balanced flavor into the dish. But again, this, if you were to just discard it, be kind of a waste. So vegetable stock, chop it up and make a yummy cream of broccoli soup. There's a lot of uses for the whole plant. Okay. Broccoli. I believe we want to slice up some garlic. Yep. Okay, this is also fun. So garlic, just in case someone didn't already know, a garlic clove is the individual seed that comes off of the whole bulb. This is a garlic bulb or a head of garlic, and this is the clove of garlic. This recipe called for 2 cloves of garlic. I know myself though. I am a garlic monster, kind of like the Cookie Monster, but for garlic. So when I'm cooking for myself, I almost always increase the garlic. It's just that personal preference. It makes me happy. I like the flavor. And I mean, like Hippocrates himself used to prescribe garlic for almost any ailment, whether that was, you know, true or not. They believed that it cured everything. So we've been treating garlic as like a food as medicine type of thing for a very, very, very long time. And I feel like the more garlic I can have, the better. But for some folks, it's hard on digestion. And so if you want to just omit the garlic or reduce the garlic, you can do that. Or if garlic powder is a little bit easier for you to handle, then the ratio is usually 3 to 1. So if you had 1 teaspoon, 3 teaspoons of fresh garlic, you would use 1 teaspoon of dried garlic. Dried spices and herbs are more pungent than the fresh variety because they've had all of the water removed and all that's left is basically flavor. So if you were going to use, a tablespoon of dried basil or something, you would do 3 of the fresh. I hope that makes sense. So I am just slicing this garlic up kind of a rough chop. The easiest way to peel garlic is to place the garlic clove on your cutting board, lay your knife down flat on top of it, and press. It kind of crushes the clove enough to then just be able to unwrap it like a little jacket. And then again, just slicing it up. Yum. Okay, onion, all of that stuff, got our garlic, got our broccoli. Everything else is going to be for cooking. So we are actually going to get into the cooking portion so that we can get our salmon starting to sear and get our pasta cooking. So, I have a lemon for later and then some parsley for later. Okay, so we'll just keep that there. All right, so this is usually when I sort of reset myself. I make sure all of my prep is ready. I make sure that all of my ingredients are nearby, because once we get into the cooking, it goes fairly quickly and it's more fun to just sort of be right here and engaged and involved. So I am going to start by turning on the pan and getting everything ready to go. This is another thing that I learned in culinary school. Please don't laugh at me. It's called haha your pan. Haha, I can't help but laugh. Haha stands for heat, add, heat, add. So we're going to heat the pan, then we're going to add some oil. We're going to heat the oil, then we're going to add the food. It doesn't have to take forever, but just like you would preheat your oven before putting in a cake, you want to preheat your pan before putting in vegetables or protein to sear. We want the food to start cooking the second it hits that pan. And so we want to make sure that it's preheated and ready to go. So to haha your pan, turn your heat on medium heat. That's a really good, safe, general place to preheat a pan. You can always reduce the heat or increase the heat from there, but you know the pan has been warmed up. So I'm going to turn my induction burner on and set it to temperature, medium heat. And I'm going to let that heat up for about a minute. This is a cast iron pan. It takes cast iron a little bit longer to get hot than our stainless steel or aluminum pans, but once it's hot, it conducts that heat better than almost any other material except copper. Copper pans are the best. They are not cheap though. Julia Child had an entire copper kitchen. Every single pot and pan that she used was made of copper, except I think her like Le Creuset Dutch ovens. But even then, she had some copper versions, and her kitchen preserved at the Smithsonian. I hope it's still there. And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful collection. But most of us can't afford an entire copper set of pots and pans. And I really do highly recommend cast iron for their ease of cooking. And also, in my opinion, ease of cleaning. Because all you do is use some hot water and a sponge, no soap, wipe it out, and it's good to go for next time. We'll talk about that again towards the end. So my pan has been warming. Now I'm going to add some of my cooking oil, and we tend to use what most chefs tend to use is a blend of extra virgin olive oil with canola oil. Extra virgin olive oil and canola oil, these are our heart healthiest oils. Very good for our hearts, not just like better than others. They're actually very good for our hearts. We have some, and contrary to popular belief, you can cook with olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil has a smoke point of at least 400 degrees, which is plenty hot enough to do what we're doing on the stovetop. So these are the best oils for our heart, and I personally think the best oils for flavor. And when you blend the two, canola and olive oil, you are spreading your dollar bills out a little bit more. That bottle of canola is about $7. That bottle of olive oil about $27. So when you're using both, you're not going to go through the olive oil as fast.
Julia, this
So
is Linda. Oh,
yeah,
Julia,
go ahead.
yeah, what's the ratio when you do that blend of olive and canola?
50-50.
Oh, okay. And
great question.
And somebody had a question about your pan. Can you do, if you don't have a skillet, Could you do something like a non-stick, non-toxic skillet like a caraway if you don't have cast iron?
Yes, of course. As long as it's like one of the newer stoneware or ceramic style nonstick that doesn't have the Teflon coating, that's wonderful, especially for the fish. I think that that would be a great option for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great questions. Okay, so now that the oil has been warming, I'm going to be starting by searing the fish. We're going to be starting with the fish because then we can remove it from the pan and cook the rest of our stuff, and then we're going to put the fish back into the pan. So at this point, we are not trying to cook the fish completely through. We're just trying to sear one side of it to get a beautiful golden sort of amber honey color. And because I'm probably going to be removing the skin, but cooking the skin in there, I'm going to be searing this what we call presentation side down. So whichever side you plan to present on the plate, that's the side that should hit the pan first, no matter what, whether you're searing steak, chicken, fish, it doesn't matter. Presentation side down first. So if you were going to serve this with the skin up and eat the skin, then you would sear the skin first, okay? But I'm going to go fish side down. And I'm going to spread them out so that I have room for everything in the pan. Oh, can you guys hear that sizzle? That means that we have ha-ha'd correctly. Yeah, you don't want to put beautiful food into a cold pan with cold oil. It's just going to absorb it. And it will get hot, but it will just be kind of like hot and soggy, right? Hot and soggy doesn't sound very appealing to me. I want seared, I want caramelized, I want, browned, I want all of those different kinds of adjectives. So I'm going to sear this, like I said, presentation side down for about 4 minutes until that side of the fish has gotten golden and a little bit crispy. And so if your medium heat, if it's not constantly sizzling, if it doesn't sound like it's cooking, then turn it up. Some medium heats, some stovetops are a little bit different. My stovetop at home, only like half of the burner works, so I have to position the pan. Anyway, don't cook at my house, but we make it work. In this situation, if you have a good big burner, use your biggest burner, use the hottest burner. So if you have a burner on your stove that's like a quick boil, use that one. And then anywhere around medium to medium high heat, we're going to sort of live around that area for a little while. While this is searing on one side, let's see, that same plate that I used, actually, I'm going to remove the fish back to the plate. And like I said already, it's going to finish cooking when we put it back into the pan. So don't be afraid if the fish looks still raw or rare, it's going to get finished later. But we couldn't get this beautiful sear on the fish if we had already put the vegetables in there, because the vegetables would be in the way. Let's see. Oh, a fun alternative, if you have smoked paprika instead of regular plain paprika, that would be phenomenal. It adds another depth of savory flavor. The smokiness from the smoked paprika can make things taste a little bit more umami, which is that kind of like meaty, savory vibe. And I think that that's really nice as a combination here. But regular paprika is fine. And this is technically it's called a fish spatula. It can be used obviously for lots of other things. Nobody's going to yell at you if you use it for your eggs, but it's wonderful for fish. And so if you do eat a lot of fish, I recommend maybe looking for something like this. It is a very thin, tapered spatula that kind of offsets at the end so you can get under delicate things like fish without tearing them up or ripping them up. So fish spatula, great tool. I'm going to check the fish. Oh yeah, you guys, look at this. You see that beautiful? So when I talk about that kind of honey brown color that's developing over the top of the fish, what's happening right here is called the Maillard reaction. Maillard reaction is named after a man named Maillard. He named it after himself, surprisingly. But he's the one who sort of discovered, I guess, that when proteins, the amino acids in proteins, cook on high heat, they turn brown. That browning gives us a more sort of accentuated flavor, and it makes the protein taste better in general. And that's all proteins in general. Anything that has amino acids in it to make protein, those turn brown, creating that lovely flavor all over the protein. So you can impress your friends at the next dinner party by talking about the Maillard reaction. Okay, so these are seared. I've got some beautiful color on the outer layer. Like I said, removing those to this plate. And without removing anything from this pan, we're going to use any of the bits that got stuck. We're going to, thank you for putting that in the chat. Yes, we're going to leave the oil and the fish fat right in the pan. I haven't turned it off, still on medium heat. And now we're going to add directly to the same oil, the same pan, our chopped up carrots, celery, onion, and fennel. Okay. Nice. I love when the food hits the pan and just sizzles. It sounds happy. I'm going to stir this together so that it gets coated in the oil, and then I can visually see if it has enough oil or not. A lot of folks ask me, do I have to add in as much oil as the recipe calls for? Absolutely not. If watching your fat intake is something of import to you and your lifestyle, then you only need enough to just gently coat the food. We're not trying to deep fry, but you do want it to be coated enough to the point where they look just shiny, just barely shiny, and then that's enough. And so just like I talked about with the salt earlier, you can always add more. So start with a little bit less oil, and then you can always add more as you go if you need it. But starting with less means that you can kind of be in control of how your body is going to feel. Okay, so these veggies are coated in the oil. They're tossed together nicely. And then just like the protein, this has a name too. And you guys probably are more familiar with this technique. This is what we're going to attempt to do here is caramelization. When we caramelize things, just like the Maillard reaction refers to things that have protein, caramelization refers to things that have.
Uh-oh. Can you guys still hear me?
Can hear you, but the quality of the voice has changed.
Hold on 1 second, you guys.
Okay. It's like you're farther away.
I'm having some difficulty with my headset, unfortunately, and I don't want to for us to get lost in the process here. Can you guys hear me now through the regular phone microphone?
You have a little echo going. Let's see. Try again.
Oh, let me turn this up so I can hear you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, but if you okay, it looks like you can hear me. It looks like I'm the one talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's mute one of you.
Sorry about that, you guys. I'm going to speak up so everyone can hear me, and let me know if there's any other issues. But we're just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, Julia, we're hearing you.
Okay.
Double you. Can you mute one of your mics?
Just like I was talking about with the Maillard reaction, you want to leave that protein in contact with the food. With the pan, and that will help develop the color. And then same as with these veggies, we're trying to leave them in contact with the pan, because the more that they stay in contact with the pan, the more sugars will be drawn out. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me okay out of this one?
Yeah, thank you for that. You got it.
Okay. Food that has sugar in it, we want to allow those sugars to draw out, and that's what ends up becoming caramelized. You've probably heard of caramelized onions. If you just allow them to cook for a good amount of time, they will draw the natural sugars out to the surface, and then those will turn brown again. But you have to leave them in contact with the pan. So you might notice I'm not stirring this very often because I want those veggies to stay in contact with the pan where they can really develop that brown color and flavor. And so when you're caramelizing vegetables, you're only stirring them occasionally. There's a lot of words. Stir frequently, stir constantly. We're going to stir occasionally to make sure that we're building up some flavor. And I don't know if you guys can actually see that, but some of the onions and fennel are really developing some great caramelization, which is wonderful. And I'm starting to see that the onions are tenderizing, they're softening up. Great.
So what is the difference, Julia, between...
We're trying to develop like a foundation of flavor so that we can build on that. And this is going to continue cooking, but now that I'm noticing it starting to turn golden around some of the edges, we're going to add in the next step. So we're going to add in the sliced garlic now. And one of the reasons we didn't add that in yet is so that it doesn't burn. We just wanted to give the other stuff a little bit of a head start.
Julia, can I ask you a quick question? You're caramelizing, you said the veggies. What about sauteing? Like, what's the difference?
I'm really sorry. I can barely hear you. Hold on one second. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's Linda. So I was hearing different things like caramelizing, sauteing, and then I even heard, learned about sweating veggies. So what are you doing exactly to those veggies that is different from those other two?
I am so sorry. I cannot hear you. And so I'm gonna try to turn the audio on my other device, I guess. But without the headset on, I can't hear you. I'm really sorry about this, guys. Hold on. No. Okay, we're gonna have to hold questions until I can look at the chat or I can get my headset back on. But for right now, I'm so sorry. I can't hear you well enough to be able to answer, and I want to. Once we get the pasta and the fish into the pan, I'll be able to get everything back to normal. I'm sorry. Okay, so once we got the garlic in there, we're only going to saute that for about 1 more minute. And once you start to smell the garlic, you're good. We're going to add in the broccoli. Stir it all together. And then let it sit. Again, maybe just for a couple of minutes. So we're not worrying about sauteing the broccoli. We're just trying to get it to kind of mix in with the flavors. And the artichoke heart. You can just buy marinated artichoke hearts at the store. You can buy plain artichoke hearts if you want to watch your sodium or other take, then you can season them yourself. Because a lot of the times when we buy prepared jarred foods, they can be a little higher in sodium than we want. You can look for low sodium items, and I really highly recommend doing that whenever possible. But we are just going to put in the marinated artichoke heart and the liquid, the marinade comes with it. We're going to stir that all together. The liquid that comes out of the artichoke hearts are going to help to flavor some of this stuff, but also we're gonna allow it to cook away so that most of it will evaporate, and then we will add in our pasta and our other liquids to cook. Okay, while these are reducing and just sort of bringing out more of that flavor in the veggies, I'm gonna get my pasta measured out and ready to add in. So we are using orzo pasta today. It is a standard pasta. It's made just like any other pasta. It's just rice shaped, which is kind of fun. But if pasta doesn't fit into your lifestyle, then you could do brown rice would work very well. You could do arborio, like risotto style rice would work really well. Even quinoa would work pretty well in this recipe. So there's a lot of different whole grain options that you can do instead of the orzo, but this is also fun. They didn't always used to have this, but there now is actually a gluten-free orzo pasta. I'm pretty sure that it's Barilla brand. They have their gluten-free like lentil pastas and protein pastas and different kind of gluten content pastas. And I think now they have an orzo shape in the gluten-free variety. So there's a lot of different options. For whatever reason you may want to be avoiding these kinds of ingredients. But it is just, where is it? 8 ounces, 1 cup of pasta. And I'm just adding this right into the pan with the vegetables at this point. The orzo, everything has a name. This is called pearling. When you cook a dry pasta or a dry grain in a pan without the liquid and you let it get toasty, it's called pearling. So we're going to pearl the orzo pasta just a little bit by mixing it into the vegetables and letting it toast up on the heat. And then we're going to add in our stock. Mix it up, mix it up. We're going to let the orzo kind of toast just slightly. So you just do this for maybe a minute or two. And then we are going to start adding in our chicken stock. You can do this in 2 different ways. You can add in the chicken stock in batches, letting it absorb, kind of like risotto. If you've ever made a risotto, that's how that would work. Or you can pretty much add it all at once. But if you do the all at once method, you need to stay right here and be stirring it fairly frequently so that nothing sticks. And so that if you do run out of liquid, you're ready to add some more. Because we just need to add enough liquid to cook the pasta. And that's pretty much it. So I'm using a chicken stock, and this is the kind of ingredient I highly recommend getting the low sodium variety. When you're at the shelf, you can see there's usually regular broth, fat-free broth, or low sodium broth. And I recommend the low sodium broth no matter what, just because then you can control the salt in your food. Having trouble opening it, there we go. And so even if the low sodium broth, you can always add more salt, but when you use the full salt version, you can't take it away. It's very hard. So we're going to be adding in 2 cups of chicken stock. And you can definitely do this with vegetable stock if you don't eat chicken. So I'm going to be doing it the method where I add everything all the way in, because then I can stand here keeping an eye on the pan, but also we can transition into some cute questions, especially since I haven't been able to hear them. So we got the stock, add the chicken stock. We're going to allow this to cook, and we're going to add the fish back in. So in general, most pasta, including this kind of standard orzo pasta, cooks between 9 and 11 minutes. That's most boxed pasta. but you always want to read the instructions because some of them are going to be different, especially those high protein kind. They take a little longer. But about 9 minutes until this orzo is done. And that's about as long as I would want to cook the salmon. I don't want to cook it any longer than that. That might actually be too much, but I can always take it out. Because everything's just going to be cooking right in this skillet. So hopefully you can see I'm kind of pressing everything down so that it's submerged in the broth. I want to make sure that that pasta is submerged enough to be able to cook all the way through. I'm going to add just a little bit more. I think I have extra veggies, and so I might need a little extra broth to make sure that pasta is covered up, right? I'm going to turn the heat down. This is the only time we're not going to be on medium or medium high heat. You're going to turn it down to medium low. We do want it to continue cooking, but we don't want to overcook the salmon, and we don't want to dry out the pan too much so that the pasta can't cook. So I'm going to place my salmon back over the top. Just kind of laying it across the surface of everything else that's in the pan cooking. The heat and the flavor from underneath are going to penetrate the fish and not only season it, but also finish cooking it. So for now, I'm just going to set some of those things to the side. I have my lemon and parsley, which are going to be for finishing when everything is done. But in just a moment, let's see. Just going to see if maybe I could get my headset back to work for just a quick Q&A. Let's see.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I can hear you. So let's get to some of the, what was that question that you were trying to ask me while I was struggling there for a second?
Oh, well, I was just asking you about the technique for the cooking of the veggies, because we were saying you were caramelizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between caramelizing and sauteing or sweating?
Oh, great question. So sauteing is just a quick way to heat things up and get them cooked all the way through. You're not spending as much time focusing on the surface or the caramelization. You're just trying to kind of quickly heat. If anyone out there speaks French, I apologize if this is not exactly correct, but saute is a ballet term. It means to jump. And so when you see a chef tossing the pan, they are sauteing. And that's usually low oil, high heat, quick cook. Okay, caramelization is actually usually a little bit lower and slower because we want to allow time to draw the sugars out and let them brown before they burn. And then sweating is the lowest and slowest. We're not trying to pick up any color at all. We're just trying to tenderize and allow their moisture to come out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's a great question.
Now, we had a couple of questions about the same thing, about elaborating on the sourcing of the salmon. So one question was a little bit different, was, is there a difference in nutritional value in farmed versus wild caught? And then the other has to do with more about, Pacific versus Atlantic. And
Okay.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So you can source pretty great like West Coast Pacific salmon here in LA. I mean the best fishmongers in LA are either Santa Monica Seafood on the west side. They can be a little bit pricey, but very good, high quality, and usually very local. And then if you're on the east side, it's called Fish King, and that's in Glendale, and that is probably the best fish market in LA County. Worth the drive. Very, very good stuff over at Fish King. And the kind of salmon and stuff that they have is usually going to be pretty sustainable and extremely delicious. Scottish salmon is wonderful, but it is definitely pricier because it is imported, flown across the globe. And the longer something has to travel, the more it's going to cost, not only to your wallet, but also to the planet. there is an environmental cost to shipping food all around the world, right? So Scottish salmon is a nice
It
treat,
is.
but maybe on a more
Okay.
regular basis, we look for the Pacific salmon.
What was that
Sorry?
one over the Scottish? You said the second option is which one?
Like anything from the Pacific. You can get
Pacific.
salmon off Mexican waters or Alaskan waters, and I think Alaskan salmon is really great for what we would call fairly local.
Okay. Also, for the portion in the
Mhm.
recipe, do you recommend the fillet portion of the salmon versus the tail piece? I think,
Well,
I
I
think,
guess that's personal.
yeah.
I just understand the question. So, like the thicker piece of the fillet is a little bit thicker and fattier, and it does take longer to cook, but you are going to get more protein out of it, just more food out of the thicker portion. But portion size is really very personal. So, I would stick to what you think you're going to be comfortable eating, and then you can always save cooked salmon as a leftover. It make wonderful addition to a salad as a lunch the following day. You don't even have to reheat it. Just flake the salmon up like a kind of like a niçoise salad. It goes great. You can flake it up and add it to scrambled eggs, which I've done a fair amount. So if you don't eat the whole fillet, I think that that's perfectly normal. Eat the portion that works for you. The recipe calls for 4 ounces per portion, and that's just because that's like a standard serving of seafood protein. A
Mhm.
standard serving of any protein, like in catering or in a restaurant or according to most RDs, is between 4 and 6 ounces of protein. And a 4-ounce portion of salmon is going to give you the like a good high amount of the omega fats without filling up too much on any of those kinds of things. But I like these long, skinny fillets. So even if you buy a whole fillet, I would cut it down into the smaller portioned pieces. They cook faster. You can sear them more easily. And because some of that whole fillet is very thin and some is very thick, they're not going to cook evenly. So cutting them down can be really helpful for a lot of different reasons. And you can buy them that way too.
So, another question that came in, I know we're over time, so if people need to leave, I understand, but I wanted to just get a couple questions answered by some of our viewers about, what's healthy about this recipe.
Oof, what's not healthy about this recipe? I mean, the American Heart Association recommends that Americans eat 2 servings of seafood a week, and salmon is one of the best versions of that because of its really healthy oils and fats. We need fat, but we need good fat. Just like we need salt and sugar, but we need moderated and good varieties of them. And so the salmon has a ton to offer in terms of your lean protein and healthy fats. And then the amount of vegetables in here, you could always increase. You could add different veggies to this dish. So anytime that you're getting a full serving of vegetables with a full healthy protein and a grain, like let's say you did brown rice with this or a
Mm-hmm.
whole wheat orzo pasta, and you're getting those healthy grains and the healthy veggie, and the healthy fish. There's nothing that's not healthy, really.
Yeah, I think the omega-3 fatty acids are really the key here, and the lean protein. Just for our viewers, we have a webinar called Eating for a Better Brain, and that is on our website. And Xiaoping Li, who is the nutritionist, she's an internist and an expert in nutrition who runs the Nutrition Center at UCLA, did a webinar for us about a year ago. We have it on our website. So it's called Eating for a Better Brain. I'm going to chat that in right now so that you can check that out. And she goes into talking about a lot of the nutritional elements of food that people need to be more aware of to actually put together a healthy diet plan for them on a daily basis. So check it out.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Olivia. That is the link to it. And so actually, this is how I came to know about Chef Rhoton is through a seminar that Dr. Lee put on that included the UCLA Teaching Kitchen. So anyway, they really are, they complement each other.
I was going to say, I remember
Yeah.
that very well. That was a lot of fun. I just am pointing out, because I know some folks need to go. What we're looking for at this point, the salmon is cooked. I'm stirring this up to just sort of test the pasta, but we want to make sure that the pasta is cooked tender, you know, al dente, like a regular pasta, and that the broccoli is tender. Pretty much everything else is going to be fully cooked at this point, but you want to make sure the broccoli is cooked to your liking and that the pasta is finished. And when it is, you're going to add in the chopped parsley and a squeeze of about half a lemon. You can always add more lemon. If you add the whole lemon all at once, then it could be too lemony, right? So add half, stir it up, and then taste it. If you think it needs more, you can always add more. But if you add too much, I'm sorry, you're going to be stuck with lemon pasta for the night, and that's okay, but you want to kind of go easy. And then for plating, I highly recommend, just because we always want to make the star of the show the star of the show. So I'm going to put some of my pasta and yummy roasted veggies and the artichokes and the broccoli, all this beautiful, healthy stuff. And it's basically, I'm making a stage. And then I'm going to put the diva, the salmon, on top of her stage where she belongs. And I'm going to finish with just another little sprinkle of some chopped parsley, because we like green and we love to garnish. When we garnish our food, it makes our brains more excited to eat healthy. And just the last thing as a quick lesson from my end, when the salmon is cooking, what you're looking for, if you have a meat thermometer, you want it to read 145 degrees internal temperature. That's what's safe for seafood. But there are some visual cues as well. You can see on the side of the salmon fillet, hopefully it's got of that white fat. When the white fat starts to come out of the sides of the fish, that tells you that the internal fish is very hot and it's pushing the fat out. And so that tells me that it's cooked all the way through to the inside. You can also look for that kind of flakiness. I apologize. My fingers are made of like asbestos, so I can touch really hot food. I don't recommend you doing this, but you can see how it just sort of flakes apart. Can you guys see that? That also tells you that it is done. Okay, so some visual cues that you can look for if you don't have a meat thermometer. But basically, you have a beautiful dish made in one skillet, one thing to wash, a bunch of meal prep. If you wanted to, you could pack this into containers and it would last in your refrigerator for at least 5 days. And I think that's all of the main skills and kitchen stuff that I wanted to touch on. So as long as we answered all of the pertinent questions and touched on everything that you were happy to touch on, I feel like that is dinner served.
Wow. I wish I was there. It looks beautiful.
No, I wish we had smell-o-vision, right?
Yeah, I know. Someday,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like in the movie theaters, there was scratch and sniff.
Yeah.
Right. But a nice aroma. Yeah, I think this is wonderful. I learned so much today, and I can vouch for that that fish spatula because I never used one before, and I just like, who needs it? And then recently I got one. I'm like, whoa, this is a huge difference, and they're not that expensive. Like, go to, you know, TJ Maxx or Home Goods or somewhere and get one there. You don't have to get like the most expensive one, right?
Oh,
Yeah, and I think what there's so many important things that you touched on. Just to sum up, you talked about low sodium alternatives, like making your own artichoke hearts, or using low sodium broth, to, you know, use the salt as you, you know, to your taste, and don't overdo it, and start low, go slow, as they say in prescribing medicine. Same thing with salt. So there's so many things that people can do to make this recipe according to, you know, what their needs are, what their tastes are, and to make it even more low sodium than it already is. So
100%.
yeah, one last question somebody did. I want to ask you, and it's okay. Somebody asked it, and I need to address this. Is there a substitute for white wine that you would recommend in cooking?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. I skipped the white
Yeah,
wines portion. Well, the easiest way to substitute is to just not do it. You can see the dish still works fine. The recipe says you can also use water. It's
yeah.
not going to add any other flavor, but it helps to deglaze the pan. Or you could use more of the same chicken stock that you're cooking with. That would be fine.
Okay, okay, very good. So, Julia, I can't thank you enough for being here today. This is really exciting. This is something new that we did. Love to have you here. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So, this webinar will be available on demand once we get it edited. And also, if anybody, again, has any questions on foods, like the properties of foods, anti-inflammatory properties, alternatives for different types of oils, please check out Eating for a Better Brain, because it goes into all of that. And we also have a brain boot camp program where we talk about nutrition as well. But have a good evening, everyone. Julia, thank you so much. And
Thank
thank
you
you
for
to your
having
team.
me.
Yeah, it was terrific. And thanks, everyone. And thanks to our team, Olivia and Dee Dee and Ernie. And we'll see you again at our next webinar, which will be about something totally different called agitation. So, everybody, take care, and we'll see you again. Be well, and thank you.